Hey guys, it's week 5. You survived your annotated bibliography. You'll get the feedback back for that this week. This week, in terms of what we're doing, we're moving on from sources, though of course you still need those and you still need to work on getting them into your paper. But we're really moving on to actually writing the essay itself, the argument essay. So this week, as it says in the little blurb here, is really full. We've got a lot of stuff to cover and it's going to take you some time to get through it. You also have kind of arguably a lot of things to do this week. I know that that's not ideal. It's the middle of July, but this is what we have to do to get this thing done. So this week's goals, we're using the classic argument format instead of Toulmin or Rogerian or other types of argument. We're using classic argument. In my opinion, classic argument is more like a quote-unquote regular essay that you might have written before. It's got intro, body, conclusion. There are just some little differences that you're going to have to pay attention to. One of those is your proposition, which is one of the things that you have to do for this week. You're going to submit a proposition paragraph to the checkpoint. That'll be due on Thursday, and I'll take a look at that. Your proposition is basically a thesis statement, but it's not like a regular thesis statement. It's a whole paragraph. So please make sure that you take a look at that stuff, at the resources on Moodle, so that you're familiar with that before you try that. Otherwise, we're also talking about the actual classic argument essay format, in-text citations. Part of the classic argument is using claim data warrant, which is how you kind of put together your body paragraphs and use your sources. If you've integrated sources before, this shouldn't be too hard for you. If it's something that you're not familiar with, make sure you take the time to get familiar with it, and of course, as always, ask questions. So, a lot to cover this week. Basically, this week we're covering all the nuts and bolts of writing a long research-based essay like this. So, here are your readings and resources. This Purdue OWL link is going to say a lot of the same stuff as your textbook. Your textbook will go into more depth than Purdue OWL, but Purdue OWL has a good nuts and bolts tutorial on in-text citations. This video is also kind of a good nuts and bolts, so if you want to watch the video for help, that's a good idea. More on in-text citations. This folder has all of the classic argument handouts and materials. Please make sure you get in there and you look at all of those documents, not just a couple of them. This claim data warrant page is kind of lengthy, but it gives you a building block for using claim data warrant. Then, using quotes well and quote integration, all of that stuff is in here. This putting paragraphs together with quotations, it's a step-by-step worksheet that if you're really struggling to kind of figure out how to integrate those quotations, it can be actually it's a worksheet. You build a paragraph kind of step-by-step with their instructions. I think that's interesting. Also, there's a rough drafts requirements. Those are the minimum requirements. There will be a quick video about that on here as well. And then you have 3 things to do this week. So, acknowledge your annotated bibliography feedback. Again, that's not just looking at the grade, it's looking at my written feedback and going back in to turn it in. In particular, make sure you take a look to make sure all of your sources are usable. If there are any that aren't usable or are weak, you might want to rethink those and go look for some others. You also have your proposition checkpoint. Notice that the proposition checkpoint is not a discussion forum this time. That's not peer review. I'm going to give you feedback on that just so that, because that's kind of new and I want you guys to have my explicit feedback on that. Then you do also have to write one of your proof paragraphs, one of your body paragraphs with quotations from your sources as if you were putting it into your paper, and you will get some peer review on that. So make sure you take the time to do your own paragraph and submit it there, and make sure that you give some good, thoughtful feedback to your peers so that they can have some good feedback. So that's this week in a nutshell. It's quite a lot, I know that. Please break it down, take your time, make sure you're logging in several times this week so that you can get it all done and get it all done well. This is the building blocks of your actual essay, and that's what we'll be moving on to in the coming weeks. Have a good week. See you guys next week.